welcome to our second training. We're so excited to finally be here. Sorry for all the rescheduling. Thank you all for your patience and understanding and flexibility. Today
No.
we're going to be talking about quite a few things, but our main three topics are digital organizing, storytelling, and strategic engagement. Those all sound like big, scary words, but we'll break it down super easy for you. And I I know you're going to be a pro at the end of this. So logistics, I already mentioned earlier, it's going to be recorded and then parts of it's going to be shared on YouTube. Um, Community agreements already went through this last time and we're all familiar, so we won't take too much time here. Our trainers, again, you already know us, but Victoria and I are here and excited. Our agenda today, first we're gonna do a quick check-in with Victoria. I don't know why it says orientation, not supposed to be there. Then we'll start with intro to digital organizing. We'll transition into storytelling for action, and then we'll wrap up with strategic engagement. We'll review our practice assignment for this week, and then we'll close out. Does anyone have any questions about what we're going to get into today?
No.
Okay, good. Let's get on into our first topic, which is digital organizing. So when you all hear the word organizing, what comes to your mind? What do you think of when you hear organizing? What is your experience with organizing even? MJ, I see you ready.
Yeah, getting people to me organizing is figuring out what the need is, first of all, or what you're organizing around. So I just feel like organizing to me means that you're gonna get your people together to come together for one cause and then
Mhm.
organize around it. So I guess that's what I see.
Absolutely. Rallying support, mobilizing people around a common cause. Okay. Selena or Kenya, when you hear the word organizing, what comes to your mind?
Um, when I think of organizing, I think of things in place, um,
Mhm.
strategies, tactics,
Yes.
um, products, timing, scheduling, agendas, um, all those things.
All correct. Absolutely.
When I think of organizing, I'm thinking about research. Got to do your research first,
Mhm.
Yes,
first and
yes.
foremost for everything. Um, just to figure out where your direction is going to be, and who your direction is going to be too. So that's important. Definitely research.
Yes. Okay. You all are super familiar with everything about organizing, and you're all on the right track. Everything you said is absolutely a part of organizing. So the definition of organizing from our recent chapter organizing training with Nana Khanna, if you were happened to attend, is the process of building power by involving constituency, which is what Selena was mentioning, identifying who is going to be participating, who you want to join in on your strategy, identifying the problems they share, again, doing your research and the solutions to those problems, identifying the targets that can make those solutions possible, engaging them through tactics like Kenya was mentioning, developing capacity to further take on problems. So organizing happens in formations oriented around a long-term agenda, like MJ was talking about. We have to bring all of our supporters, our base, for us, for PWN, our members, and we have to bring them all together and organize them into a unified group, moving us towards our long-term strategy and our long-term goals. And so you all are most familiar with organizing and building power through the campaigns that we run. So our voter engagement campaigns are a form of organizing. It's a part of our organizing strategy to build power within our communities, to rally support around issues that matter to our chapters and to our communities. And then one last note is that advocacy, activism, mobilizing, direct service, community engagement, and legal action are not organizing alone. So organizing is not one of these things like advocacy. So for example, AIDS Watch, going to the Capitol, advocating to your representatives, that is a part of organizing, but by itself, it is not organizing. Remember, organizing has to focus on the long-term agenda, has to focus on what wins we can get and what solutions we can identify to get us to our long-term agenda. So it takes all of these things in combination with strategy, with reflecting on long-term goals, to create an effective organizing strategy that is also sustainable. So here's a quote about what digital organizing is, from Repower, which is a really amazing education group that we know of. And they say that digital organizing is the practice of building a digital presence and community rooted in trust in order to move people to action online, to confront the state and build power. So digital organizing is taking all of those organizing skills that we are already familiar with and just translating them into our digital platforms, into social media, into all the ways that our members, our base, our allies, our target audience navigates in the digital space. So digital organizing defined is the strategy of using virtual tools to move passive supporters like social media followers into active stakeholders in our campaigns, for example, our phone banks, who take meaningful action towards change. And this is critical because it adapts the organizing principles to the virtual environment that most people occupy daily. Like we talked about in the last training, so much of the world already has access to the internet. So much of the US specifically uses the internet consistently. So people are already occupying and navigating these spaces on a daily basis. So we want to use that in order to recruit more members, to get people to join our cause and to support our campaigns. It is also a form of organizing that is more accessible and streamlined for certain campaigns. I remember during the pandemic, there was a lot of conversation online about how people can be engaged with the Black Lives Matter protests and campaigns from home if they have mobility issues or certain disabilities that limit their ability to, for example, like join a march or a protest. And so digital organizing really flourished in a way that made it accessible for people who can't necessarily go outside or who were immunocompromised and were concerned about the pandemic. So that's another really great reason that digital organizing is an important tool for us. Digital organizing goes beyond just sharing information. We are striving to inspire action from people. We are looking to build momentum, and most importantly, we're looking to cultivate community. It has to be personal. If someone feels something about your campaign, about your cause, they are 65% more likely to take action. So it's not just about giving them information, it's about creating trust amongst community members, making them feel like they have a purpose, making them feel like they have a political home, a place to belong, and making them feel deeply about our issue and using that to move them to take action with us. Here are some digital organizing tools. For example, social media is the main one, email lists, SMS texts, petitions, blogs, your website, Mobilize, which we use for our volunteer coordination, for our phone banks and our canvassers, and virtual groups / meetings. So these are all places that we can connect with people digitally and to get them connected and hopefully join in on our campaigns. There are more than these, but these are the main ones. So this is a wonderful chart that we put together. It's about our voter engagement campaign digital strategy. So these are the essential 6 questions that we have to answer and think about and reflect on before we even begin creating social media content, before we begin a campaign. So the first question is why? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose? It's also known as our theory of change. So your theory of change is your hypothesis or your guess about what practical actions may lead to a desired outcome. So if we do phone banking, for an example, then we will get representative numbers of the amount of people in our communities who care about abortion rights, for example. And this is important because we can use this to lobby to our representatives, to mobilize folks around getting an amendment passed or pushing a ballot measure through. So that's our theory of change. And we have to be very clear about our purpose and why we're doing it, and that's the first question, because everything else is dependent on that. This is like our mission, for example. This is where we always go back to if we're having questions or things aren't working. We need to be very clear about why we're doing things and what's tangible, practical actions folks can take in order to see a desired outcome. Because if they feel like they're participating and they don't see, the outcomes of that, they don't see the wins, they're less likely to engage in the future. So after we figure out our why, the second question is how. And these are our tactics, like Kenya mentioned earlier. So what can we do to achieve our goal? What can we do to achieve our theory of change? What actions can we take? So for our campaigns, for example, we can phone bank, we can call voters to educate them about ballot measures that we're working on, or talk to them about issues that they care about in their communities. After figure out how we can advance our strategy to work on our organizing agenda, we then come down to the third question, which is what? Which is our messaging. So how do we communicate to others, to potential allies, to base, to our PWN members? How do we communicate our theory of change? What themes do we focus on, and what stories do we tell? The next question that we look at is identifying our target audience. So who, number one. So who do we want to receive our messages? Who do we want to join in on our action? And we'll have an exercise going more deeply into target audiences later. But this helps you craft the content for social media based on who we're trying to target, who we're intending to get our messages to. The second who is the person that holds the power. Who holds the power to make the changes that we want to see? So this could be our district attorney, for example, or our sheriff, like in Houston, where we're trying to get elected officials to commit to stop criminalizing folks who get abortion care. It could be a city commissioner, it could be the mayor, it could be your federal representatives in Congress. And this is also important to identify so we know who we are lobbying to, who we are targeting, because then that can inform our tactics to identify how this person might be influenced and how we can influence them. And then the last question is where? What platforms are we going to use? What are the best places to get the most amount of people to see our messaging, specifically our target audience? Okay, that was a lot. Does anyone have any questions about this so far? Okay. So
My question,
go ahead, Kenny.
my question is, okay, so you see when you said the theory of change, your hypothesis, where would you steer your hypothesis around? Would it be around the whole campaign, perhaps?
Yeah, so there's something called a family tree of theory of change. So it can be as broad or as specific as you need it to be. So we'll obviously come up with a theory of change for our campaign. Why are we doing these campaigns?
Right.
What actions can our community take to create the world, the community that they want to see? But you can also create theories of change for your specific like tactics, for the content you put on social media. So whenever we're just thinking, it's anytime you think of the question, why are we doing this? Why does it matter? Why do we want our community to be involved? You can develop a theory of change around it. That makes sense.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a visual.
Yeah, Victoria.
Yeah. Here's an example. I love examples. So a theory of change is also something that you always get asked, like, say, if you are filling out a grant application or something like that. People want to know why and they want to know how. So your theory of change is also about, why are you doing this and how do you think you can get there? So for PWN, our theory of change is the people closest to the problems are also the people closest to the solutions. And so that is why that is rooted in everything we do is let's meaningfully involve and empower and build up the leadership of and train and give resources to the people who are most marginalized, the people who are closest to the problems that we want to change, which is basically the ways in which people living with HIV and women and people of trans experience and non-binary folks experience discrimination and injustice, right? So that is one example of a theory of change, just to wrap your mind around. And so that you can trace that back in every single thing we do. And PWN, you look through and say, is it the people who are closest to the problem that are working on the solution? I bet you will find yes, because that's what we keep at the forefront of our mind as we organize.
That is true. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Of course.
The first step to effective digital organizing is storytelling for action. So I'll pass it over to Victoria to lead us in the next section.
Yay, thank you. All right, let's go to the next one. So normally I do this little storytelling spiel for folks that are, just learning to craft their own story so that they can go, say, advocate on their own behalf and tell their personal story. This is going to be a little bit different because you're all really well versed and experienced in telling your own stories. And now you're turning that skill into a wider messaging where you're not just talking about your own personal lived experience, but you're connecting it to other folks, you're connecting it to values, and you're using it as a part of this larger campaign. So the 3 A's we've got, it's got to be accurate. It reflects the truth as validated by experience and rigorous research. We know that's really important and something that a lot of times our opponents are not bound by. They don't necessarily care if it's accurate. So we want to make sure it's what we're saying is accurate. Aspirational. So it offers an attractive possible future that inspires audiences to answer your calls to action. We have to keep the hope alive and let folks know, yes, that future that you imagine that you want to live in, it is possible. That's how we get to where we're going. And it's actionable. We need a clear, practical next step that they can take to move us closer to our desired future. You can inspire somebody all the live long day, but then at the end of it, you've got to give them something to do. And it's got to be something that they can definitely wrap their minds around and do. All right, next one. All right, so we are going for systemic change. And so the purpose of your storytelling, you've got to it's going to give you tools and strategies to help you own your story and develop your message in a way that's effective for other people hearing it. You also have to connect it to systemic problems, right? That encourage others to action, which is what we just talked about, that changes the public discourse, and contributes to the conversations around the issues that affect you. That's a lot of what comms departments in all of the organizations do, is try to change that public discourse and make it match what our communities are seeing and feeling and experiencing. Let's go to the next one. All right, so a personal story is going to motivate people to act. Like Alex said earlier, when people feel something, they will be that much more moved to act.
Mm.
And it's as old as humanity. Like, as long as we have had language, we've been able to sit around a fire and talk about our experiences. And that's how we relate to one another and connect with one another and experience humanity together. So it's always going to be like powerful and have a universal appeal. And when you make yourself relatable and your experiences relatable to other people who maybe have not had those experiences, that's when it starts to click for them. That's when they start to feel things for themselves that maybe they haven't before, when it was connected to that specific issue that they haven't experienced. And that will move them to act, to change. All right, next one. All right, so here are some elements that, and I've got them in this little ladder because they kind of build on each other. So at the very, very bottom, we've got your backstory. That's your, what's gotten us to this point. So right now in this campaign, we know like we have been working and mobilizing our communities, and building power in our communities to get us to the point where we are now for years and years. And in these specific states where you all have your voter engagement campaigns, we're really starting to see that folks are recognizing PWN, are starting to see us as someone that they can rely on for, information for voters about what's going on in their communities. And there's a beautiful like herstory of that happening. Then you build your values on top of it. So that's why we always have our values trainings right at the beginning. We have to remember and go back to the values. What are the guiding beliefs that are making you get out and do all of this big work? A big one for us is bodily autonomy, right? We want everybody to be able to decide for themselves what happens to their body. That relates to reproductive justice, that relates to healthcare and housing and so many other issues, everything we work on. It all goes back to those values. Then you have to connect your purpose. What is the reason that you're doing this? Do you have a personal reason? Have you experienced injustice in your life? Have you seen injustice happening in your community that you're out there fighting to change? And then your vision, right? There's the aspirational part. What's that vision for the future that we're trying to get to? What is it going to look like when we've won? And then you add in your strategy. So you align opportunities. Any opportunities folks have that are listening to you, paying attention to you, now they care. They align with the values that you've been talking about. They've heard your purpose. They want to join you and get to that vision for the future. Then you hit them with the opportunities that they can make this change occur. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so here's some more, and we talked about these, but they're really important. So your target audience, your message is going to change depending on your audience. If you are talking to your next door neighbor who is, 90 years old and has been listening to the news and maybe not had a lot of like contact with what younger people are experiencing, or maybe like reproductive justice is not that big an issue for them anymore, there's still a way to connect that to the values that really matter to them. But you're going to talk to them in a different way than if you're talking to somebody who just turned 18 and is about to graduate high school and this is the first time they're ever going to vote, right? You
Right.
tailor your messaging to your audience. Your goals. So we've, talked about this and we'll keep talking about it. Always in the front of the mind. It's crucial to state exactly what you need them to do or how you need them to change. It's not enough for an audience just to be aware of an issue. We talk about raising awareness a lot, and it is really important. We need to educate them. But what do they do with that knowledge once they have it? What do they do with that awareness? Do we want them to vote? Do we want them to boycott something? Do we want them to influence someone else? Do we want them to join us and become volunteers? Do we want them to become members and allies of PWN? All of the above, right? And then ownership. So this is the part that if I was just saying, okay, this is you building your message, your story to go out and, speak to an elected official and be a little bit different. Your story is yours, right? Only you can decide how much of your story to share or when or how or to whom. You own it. It belongs to you. Nobody can tell you now is the time or this is what you have to share or how much you have to share. It's up to you, what makes you feel comfortable. When you are also dealing with someone else's story, which you will as, somebody in a comms type role, you have to also be mindful of their story and them taking ownership of their story. So they need to also feel empowered to take ownership of that narrative. And that means opening all kinds of opportunities for them to, maybe they want to talk about something, but they don't want to disclose their status. Maybe they want to, just show their first name, but not their last name. Maybe there's all kinds of ways that we can make people really comfortable and still let them participate and take ownership of their story. All right, next one. All right, so here's a big board of values. Just going back to values. Every single message that is powerful, that resonates with you, that you see all throughout political campaigns, voter engagement campaigns, it's all going to connect back to a value. I'm going to challenge you to start looking at it whenever you get, a text message from a campaign, or when you see some kind of literature for something that is calling you to action. Look for where's the value in it? Because I bet you it's in there. It's in there somewhere. Is it equity? Is it freedom? Is it justice? Is it access? Is it family? Elected officials love throwing around family. And it's both sides, right? Both the right and the left are using the same values in different ways to back up the ways in which they're trying to move us to action. So whether that be, say, when we're talking about abortion, we talk about autonomy and about choice and about access to healthcare, where the right is talking about life and family and all kinds of, that's the same values, but shaped in a different way to move people to action. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, and we started talking about this already. To build your message, you need to think about which value is at stake. So this is why should your audience care? Let's say with what's an issue ID that one of y'all is working on that like we can workshop this with?
Abortion rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the issues I need to be working on at the moment. Yes, for this year.
Perfect.
I mean, for this campaign. Yes.
Yeah. So why should your audience care?
They should care because it affects everyone. It affects families. It affects women. And yeah, very interesting. Ways, very interesting way. I mean, whew, it affects everything because I'm not go. I can go deep, but I'm not go deep. can go deeper than, yeah, yeah, I'll keep it at that
Yeah.
right, right now.
I
But
agree.
yeah, it's crucial. It's our health is our health. Our health is at stake. It's our
Mhm.
women's health are at stake.
Mhm. I
So
think it affects you're right. It's like Selena, I think it comes to mind for me, reproductive health is it affects all of us. I mean, every human, it just does. I think one thing that really helps me too is like the language part I've really caught the attention of some of the people on the doors when I say people that can get pregnant. And I've even had someone say women, and I said, no, people that can get pregnant, because there are plenty of folks in this world right now that have chosen to be who they were born to be, and they still carry the parts to have children, and it can happen. So yeah. So I think that's part of it, definitely.
Absolutely. So that right there is a value. It's universal. It's universal. It affects all of us. It's about equity and access, right? And you already talked about the problem. So you document and describe what is it that's happening? What is it that we're seeing? What happens when people don't have access to abortion care, to reproductive health care?
People are forced to have children they aren't ready to have.
Exactly.
People are falling ill, and we've already had one report of one death, and one is too many. Just folks that need a very simple procedure just to get their own, because their body rejected the fetus itself, so they just need to have a cleansing, and it's okay. It's not a bad thing. And look at this woman that passed away because of it, because they did not allow her to get the health care she needed. So that right there is enough. That story, I will take that story to every door I can, because everybody that we talk to at the door has sisters. They may even have trans sisters in their family. They may even have friends. So I mean, community, it speaks volumes when you can explain to somebody um that it's not just a right and wrong issue anymore. It's not a moral issue anymore. It's a health issue. So if they want to use it morally, that's fine. They can vote how they got to vote. But we're going to talk to the folks that we know that we can touch. We all know you get to a door and the first thing they say is, I'm Catholic. You already know, honey, depending on their age, whether you're going to be able to change their mind or not. Or not even change their mind, but allow them to see it differently and allow them to choose their own. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. And that goes to another point of like, how do you know when somebody is possibly movable and possibly not? Do we spend a lot of time trying to change folks' minds who, are on the other side of an issue? Or do we maybe focus on folks who haven't totally made up their minds or just need more, um, to like see it in a different way or to have more information? So yeah, you're absolutely right. And then you present them with a solution. The solution we're presenting to them is get out and vote. Make your voice heard. Whichever way you're voting, just make sure that you're out there and you're doing it. And the reason why a solution is really important is you want to avoid compassion fatigue. So that's when people just see a parade of social problems that are just impossible to solve. You just see, yes, okay, everything is terrible. The environment is just like struggling. We're in decline. We're seeing all kinds of environmental disasters, and our rights are under attack every which way, whether it be for people of trans experience, for women in general, for people in low socioeconomic rung of the ladder, whatever. But we have to be for something positive, not just against harms and threats. You will help your audience understand their role in making this change happen and get them to a hopeful place so they know, okay, I know that at least I'm doing my part in bringing about the change I want to see. And another thing I would just want to point out is restating a false argument or myth busting and then explaining why it's wrong is just going to reinforce that thing that you're trying to say, oh, this is not right. So one of the things, like coming from the immigrants' rights world, I used to always use this example of everybody always used to say, no human being is illegal. No human being is illegal. Yes, absolutely. You're so right. We should not be using that kind of language to talk about people. That's why that movement, speaks in terms of documented and undocumented. But what happens when you reinforce that framing of illegal? That's what you are bringing into people's minds, even if you're saying not. So it only results in deepening the myth in your audience's mind. So the better approach is to proactively tell your own story rather than just not saying, well, what they're saying is not right. Let's go to the next one. I'll show you why. So if I show you this black and white picture of a teddy bear and I tell you it's not pink, now close your eyes and tell me what color you see. If you're seeing anything other than pink, then you're a unicorn. Because once you say the word pink, that's what color people are gonna have. It doesn't matter if you say that, like, our brains don't work in the negative. They work in the positive. That's a cognitive just way that our brains function. We're not going to be able to see the negative. We're only going to be able to see what we're talking about. And that's why we want to talk about proactive solutions, about what we want to see about our people's stories, and not just saying, well, what they're saying is not right. Because then we're just reinforcing their pink bear. Okay, and then just the last one. This, I always end on this, and especially as folks who are creating content. Another pitfall that we can fall into, and I'm sure you have all seen it, is trauma porn. That is when the media creates stories that are just exploitative of marginalized people's trauma. They just point out and try to get clicks and try to get, sell papers or whatever it is around, oh, look at this horrible thing that's happening. That's what happens when you don't show, yes, this person has gone through a horrible trauma, but now they are on the other side of it. They are stronger for it. They are empowered and educating their community about it to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And this is what you should do to follow them and be in allyship with them. That's what happens if you leave all that other part aside and just show the trauma. And it's really hard to look away from. It's like why we say, oh, I just can't look away from this car wreck, because it does grip your heart. It's emotional manipulation in a way, It's just like, oh, let me tell you about all these horrible things that are happening. But also, how does that connect to systemic injustice, and what can you do about it? So you're going to reframe it with the systemic problems and emphasize your community's resilience and strength, and then you're going to give solutions and demand action, and that's how you avoid creating trauma porn. So that was a really, really fast little storytelling, and we can always go back and talk more one-on-one, but we are running pretty low on time. So I want to move it back over to Alex. Do y'all have any questions about any of that? Beautiful.
So next I want to talk about strategic engagement. What even is strategic engagement? Why do we even care about it? So strategic engagement is communicating the best message through the right channels measured against well-considered goals. As a quote here, it's the difference between doing communication stuff and doing the right communication stuff. We have, all of us, campaigns, and us as individuals, we have such limited time, we have limited resources, we have limited person power. So as we're developing our strategy, as we're working on getting out the message about our campaign and getting people involved, we have to be intentional about what we do and how we do it. So what is the first step to strategic engagement? Our target audiences. So this is a chart from earlier. So we already talked about this, but you can go even further. You have to know your audience in order to develop messaging that is specifically targeted toward them, that's going to connect to them, that's going to move them. So first you have to identify them, confirm the basic information. You all are pretty familiar. You're involved in our chapters. You're connected to our members. But think about the different identities that they hold, their experiences, their access and familiarity with technology is a big one. So after you identify some of the factors of your target audience, you can then reflect, how did they get their information? What platforms are they using? How can we connect with them based on what their background is? So then your third step is to select, to choose the social media platforms and to choose the messages that are worth our time and effort. And then the last step is create. Start creating your accounts and create content geared towards your target audience. So what can we learn about our audience? This is a little activity that we're gonna have to kind of skim through quickly, but it's a really good thought exercise. So this is a fictional PWN member that we put together. This is Patty, she, her on the left side. So information about Patty, she's a 56-year-old woman. She's bilingual. She speaks English and Spanish. She's partnered with one child. She's a daycare manager in South Carolina. And she has a high school diploma and child care certificate. So these are all really important data points about this fictional member that we created. Some more information about her personality. Maybe she enjoys volunteering at her local church. She likes to spend time with her family, and she shares positive messages on social media. So you can do this with a fictional member. You can think of someone that you know as a member personally. Think about all the information that you do know about them, and then see what you can learn about that. So for example, if she volunteers at church, she might be very community involved, very community oriented. That'll inform the kind of messages that you're putting out there. What social media platforms does she use? Is she familiar with technology? Most of our members use Facebook, so that's always a really good starting point. Where do you think she gets her news? If she's participating at church, if she is active on social media, those are probably the big places where she gets her news, where she learns about what's going on in the world. Another big thing is trying to think about what motivates her. She obviously has a lot of value around her family, around her religion, her community. She cares about children. She cares about uplifting her community and sharing positive messages. And then what content do you think she's likely to engage with? So these are all just questions you can think about as you're developing your target audiences, as you're thinking about how to create content that we want folks to engage with. So next, we're gonna actually go over to our lovely Colorado campaign consultant, MJ, to talk to us a little bit about how she creates interactive content. Because MJ is a TikTok superstar. She has like so many followers. It's unbelievable. So MJ, do you want to share a little bit about how you create things that are fresh and interactive and engaging?
Yeah, it's really funny because when I first started out with TikTok, it was during COVID, and I think which a lot of folks my age, when they started TikTok, it was during that period, because I always thought of TikTok as being a youth's, thing, something the kids did. I didn't think there was too many adults until COVID, of course. So I think for me, what started me was, well, I only have one viral. Well, I have more than one viral, but I have one viral video, and I don't know if y'all seen it, but I know we're not supposed to talk about stuff like that on here, but so one of them that I did, which really caught the audience, was me throwing a can of soup at one of the current people running for office right now. And so I threw a big can of soup, and it hit him in the face, and I wish, but it made it look like I did. which is really cool. And I got like almost 500,000 views on that video, and I gained probably 7 or 8,000 followers with overnight, and it was unreal. So I now have almost 20,000 followers on TikTok, and I think a lot of mine now is just because I've kind of taken my TikTok in a way where I just do whatever comes to mind that day. If it and sometimes they take off and I get lots of views, and sometimes they don't. So I guess for me it's about um seeing who your target audience is just like always. You have to find your niche, which I think that in the beginning of my TikTok, if I would have found a niche, I think it'd been I would have went a lot further faster. So I've learned a lot by what I've done with my social media. Um Finding a niche, meaning that your target audience, who you want, who's gonna be watching your videos, interacting with your videos, and so on and so forth. I could have went several ways. I mean, could have went political. I could have went, but I just kind of do funny stuff, and it seems to be working. It just depends. Once in a while, I'll throw a video on there, and I'm completely shocked because it'll get 5,000 views, in a short period of time. And other times, I put one that I think is so amazing and funny, and I end up with 200 views. So I guess there's no real. I wish there was like a magic what do you say, not a magic spell, but like a magic combination of things that would make us all be able to get our social media going like that. But I think it's a lot of times it's a guessing game. I think for me it's just a target of my social media on at least TikTok is more towards comedy, lip syncing other people's videos, because and just making it look um good. So I think I'm learning a lot through TikTok. A lot of my friends are like, "How did you do that?" And then I will show them how, and they're learning. I've got one gal who's right now part of Promotores. I'm not sure if we've got her involved in PWN yet. I think we have, but I'm not sure. But she started her TikTok, and because of sitting with me and helping me explain to her how to get it going and how to make it look more professional and so on and so forth, she's gotten, I think she's pushing 10,000 followers right now. And so it's just, just by sitting down, and she's trans, amazing. Of course, her target audience is way different than mine, but she's doing what she has to do to get hers going. And to me, social media for right now can be lucrative. See, because I didn't think of making money on social media would really happen to me, and I really am. So because of my followers on TikTok, and also I make money off of my followers and friends off of Facebook by interacting with me. And the truth is, it may not be a lot, but it's enough to get to, pay for one thing that or something that I enjoy doing that I don't always have the money for. So I guess the main thing I can say is find a niche, and then find your target audience, and do the best you can to reach them. And if that doesn't work, try another strategy, because they're just quick videos, or they're just quick posts. And once you post above it, it goes down in the fold. So, maybe not posting every day, maybe posting just once a day, twice a week. I don't know. I've tried it all. So, like I said, it's been an awful lot of fun, and everybody on TikTok, or everybody in PWN has kind of watched my journey, and it's been kind of fun yeah. But it gets kind of discouraging because I want to have 100,000 followers, and it's just hard. There's no formula, you know? So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I love that. I'm hearing something like that viral kind of magic is really elusive, but I think just trying different things and throwing things out there and seeing what works, that's exactly right. And another thing about your content, MJ, is you're really like, you're funny and you're engaging, but you're also just so just authentically you, and it shines through in all your videos, and I think people really respond to that. People crave authenticity. And when you're able to just really put yourself out there, put your personality and your thoughts and your views into it, people will respond to it. So Thank you so much. I love that we have our own TikTok superstar to talk to us and teach
Thank
us.
you.
We'll definitely have you on more, because I know we could definitely learn from you as PWN. Like our TikTok is non-existent and we really want to get it going.
Yeah, I would love to. I all the groups that I'm involved in, everybody tells me, MJ, we need you to start the TikTok for this group, and it's like it's so hard for me to because I have so many other projects. But the truth is, it can be done. There's ways to, especially when I see other groups and how they are handling theirs, right? So I do a lot of research that way. I'll go kind of spy on other groups and see how they're doing. So I think the truth is I would love to help and because I'm getting started on getting one started for promotores too. So it's just gonna add more to my plate because I'm gonna clone myself like all these actors do. So I could have 6 people sitting at the table looking the same like I do and just doing all the work.
I love it.
Thank you so much, MJ. Wow, we really do have a lot to learn from you and from everyone else. Selena and Kenya, Brielle, you all have things that you can bring to the table. This is a co-learning experience, a co-learning space. So you're learning from us, but we also get to learn from you and from each other. Timing is key. Your content is more likely to perform better and reach more people when it's posted during peak activity time on social media. So posting in the middle of the night might not do as great as posting in the middle of the day or at the beginning of a workday, for example. Hootsuite is a social media management platform that we use for PWN. So one of the things that they have that's really neat is they provide you with ideal posting times based on each of the platforms that you use, based on your organization's performance in the past. So it takes how you've done in the past, how your followers engage with your content, and it gives you these recommended timeframes of posting. So they're listed here. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, they all have different ideal posting times. And this regenerates every, I think, 30 days or 60 days. So if you want to write these down, we're also going to have the slides and the recording in the Google Drive so you can reference back. So these are generally some really good times for you to post content, specifically for PWN, but you can also use that for your own as a starting point. And then you'll figure out what works for you, what works for your organization and your campaign. All right, Victoria, back to you.
Yeah, and you'll see with that timing, like a lot of the times it's like meal times, right? Like lunch breaks as everybody getting on their phone. I always used to start out saying like, well, at least if I'm going to post something, I'm going to do it during lunchtime because I know that's when a lot of folks are going to be on and seeing traffic. I won't get too deep into this. We'll give you the slides and you can go back and look at it. But here's a little breakdown of like from different platforms, what kind of content is prioritized by their algorithm. And the one for Twitter, we're still calling it Twitter, we're just not going to call it X. It has pretty much like the kinds of content that are prioritized are like that throughout other platforms. So video content is usually always prioritized first, followed by images and text, and then links. So usually for the most part, you're gonna get more engagement if you go with more like interactive or video content. Oh, no worries, Kenya. We will get the recording to you so we can get the rest of it. And we're so sorry about going over time. We're almost done. And yeah, there are also different things that like basically like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, they look at what your followers are engaging with, following, looking at, interacting with. And same thing with TikTok, and it just gives them more of that content that they think that they're gonna like. So another way to think about when you're creating content, and like MJ talked about this a little bit too, is like looking at what other organizations or other groups are doing. that is working for them. You can also look at what your audience is engaging with. Look at what they have liked in the past. Look at what they have reposted and see what kind of content that is and see if you can, recreate it in your own way and in your own messaging. Let's go to the next one. Super, super quick. Another very easy way to do this. I love to talk to people about A/B testing because it's like bringing the data lab into the real world in a very simple way. So basically you have one message and you want to think through what is the best way to get this message to people. And so say that message is we're going to have the harm reduction rally in Philadelphia this weekend. You create two different ways of telling the world about it. So maybe one of them is a video and another one is like a digital graphic that has all the rally information. So for A, you're going to do the video and you're going to, maybe even go live and say, hey, everybody, we're having this rally at this time and at this place, and we really need you there. Harm reduction is important because X, Y, Z. And then for B, you put all that information on a graphic. You release them both, and then you see which one gets more engagement. And that's going to tell you a lot about how your audience is receiving information. That right there is just a really simple way to be able to check. And, you're trying to get a message out there. So what's the harm in doing it in more than one way? It's really telling. It can reduce risk. So you can test changes on a smaller segment of your users before making big sweeping changes. That's like, maybe if you have a difficult bit of news to share or something like that, and you want to share with, a lot of the time this gets done in like segmenting your email audience. You can compare your messaging so you can get real-time feedback about what kind of message or content resonates better with your audience. And you can isolate specific elements and understand what elements in a piece of content are most effective. So, are people responding more when it's just you in front of a camera talking about the issues, or do they respond more to, like, say, a lot of pictures of like things that are going on in the community? Do they respond more to just like data and statistics and links to where they can get information? What is it that's really moving them to change? Let's go to the next. We did want to go through some of the data points. I'm sure y'all have seen there's like a back end if you have a like a business or a group page or something like that you can see on the back end, that there's different like post and profile impressions and reach and engagement. One of the ones that we really want to just point to for today is post engagement. That's going to be an engagement is anytime somebody interacts with your post in any kind of way. So it's more than it's just gotten in front of it. That's reach, is it got to them somehow, it was in front of them. But engagement is they clicked on it, they watched it, they read it, they reposted it, they commented on it, they liked it, they did something with it. That's going to be a really key measurement to look at. So you can always say, and we found the statistic that like 30% engagement rate is a success. It's a huge success. Like a much, much smaller percentage than that is going to be a success, and any increase, right? So if your engagement rate on the last post was 5% and now it's 7%, that's still a success. But if you look at like about 30%, where it may seem kind of like a smaller percentage, really that's 1 out of every 3 people that follow you actually not just taking the time and like seeing and reading like what you posted, but interacting with it in some way. That is huge. Let's go to the next. Yeah, let's leave it there. We can definitely talk more about looking at those data points at another time if we want to get really granular with it.
Alrighty, we're almost there. So trying to get to this as quickly as possible, but thank you for hanging in there. So we have another practice assignment for you all. So this week we're going to look at creating a content calendar. So as communications consultants, you are going to be in charge of social media promotion throughout a campaign. So you will need to practice developing a long-term plan that prioritizes the content and also distributes labor if you have other folks who are helping you with it. So this week we're going to practice making a calendar that involves key campaign dates and then the content that we're going to need to develop for social media. A spreadsheet that I created in the shared Google Drive under practice assignments folder. So each of you have a spreadsheet that you're going to work on filling out. So at the top, it has every week between now and then the end of the campaign. And then on the left side, each of the rows are different portions that you're going to work on. So first, you're going to list out the campaign milestones. I did the one for this week already as an example. So our campaign launches. Some of you have launched a week or so ago, but our Pennsylvania campaign just launched. So that's an example of a campaign milestone. And then each of the rows goes through different social media platforms. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And so then under each campaign milestone, you're going to describe what information you need to share and plan out what kind of content you're going to make. So for Facebook, for example, you're going to make a written post and you're going to include the campaign issue, the deadline to register to vote, your ballot guide, for example, if you're in Colorado, how to find your poll location, and volunteer links. So I know, Selena, we already did this for Houston yesterday. And I know, MJ, you're working on yours for Colorado. So it's pretty much going to be the same information that you're going to have to share across the platforms, but you will probably want to indicate how you're going to do it. For example, on Instagram, it's focused on images. So you might need a graphic, for example, that we created. And then, for example, TikTok, it's a video. So you're going to write a quick video describing all the information that you need. So we have another link for you of our comms and our voter engagement team. We're starting to work on a calendar of the key dates that we need social media promotion for regarding our campaign. But this is also a good exercise for you to kind of think about your long-term strategy and also plan out, look at how much content you're going to need to create. And it also gives you a schedule. So this week, I know we need to let people know, for example, that early voting starts, or we want to remind people what ID they need to bring. I have an example tab in here as well of one that I did at a training last year. So you can kind of get an example of what it looks like. But this is going to be your practice for this week. And each of you have a file in our shared Google Drive for each of your campaigns, and we'll of course touch base in our coaching sessions. Do either of you have any questions about the content calendar, any of the training portions so far?
Nope.
I have a question. Can we get a little creative when it comes to, I mean, still give the information out there, but be a little creative with it, with the content? Like maybe I want to sing a song, or maybe I want to get on live and say, say something like, "Hey, please, we're gonna be at this particular meet and greet, please, at this particular date and time," and and just give them information along with it. Would it be okay with that? To do a live, like do a Facebook Live or Instagram Live? Would that be okay? It's
Yes,
okay. Okay.
please. The
Okay.
more creative, the better. Sing a
Okay.
song, do a dance,
Okay.
whatever it is you want to do. That's really what we need is your voice and your creativity, because
Okay.
we know that just getting the information out there is not enough, right? People want to see it in an engaging, entertaining way. That,
Okay.
will like make them smile. We'll put a smile on their face and make them feel really good about getting out to vote. And if they get some information at the same time, then that's our goal accomplished.
That's good. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. I like to, yeah, 'cause I like to be authentic with with some content. So yeah, that's good. Thank you. That's gonna help.
Excited to seeing how creative you get. So as you're on social media this week, pay attention to what catches your eye. See what things that make you feel motivated or make you feel something. That's all I have. If there are no other questions, Victoria, do you have anything?
No, I'm really excited. We'll definitely be around and talk more about the content calendar, but that's really just a tool to get you just organized and thinking about what's coming up and when might be the best time to post and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.